But it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be here and sit up here and do this, and give it to you the best way I know how. Workshop started at least 20 weeks ago, if not more. Started in my house, a group of 12 guys. We closed it, started this little basket and put money in it, because at the end of it we were going to go on a trip. And by the end of the second meeting, I had asked Jim to come in and do it with us, and he came over and he tolerated it for a little while, but then a couple of guys started dropping off one by one, and we decided to open it up, and that's how it's grown into the group that you have seen here over some of the nights where there's 25, 30 people. It's neat to see what happens within this fellowship when you hang around long enough, especially when you're an effective sponsor. This is a sponsorship. It started out to be a sponsorship workshop. It's turning out to be sponsorship / big book / 12-step workshop, where we're learning a whole array of things throughout the workshop. And I'll tell you what, it's neat to see what happens over the years. All the people you meet, all the people that you get to sponsor, the goodness that God had to offer us, because we became willing to live a purposeful life of trying to help others. And I've succeeded in that up to this point, as far as sponsorship with helping other people, and I'm getting to be pretty good at it. Nowhere near as where Jim is, of course, but that's the difference of another 30 years of practicing it. So, not only to mention, but my sponsor Jim also has the IQ of a genius, and obviously he's able to dissect and pull apart things that the average lay, such as myself, or maybe some of you, wouldn't be able to see. I'm lucky to have gotten my high school diploma. You know what? It's a program that was laid out perfectly. It's a design that works. A design for living that really works is what this thing's all about. And being able to practice it, carry it in your daily life. Over the last couple of weeks, we were going all through Step 12 over and over again. Step 12 says, having had that spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. That's exactly what I've done, and nothing less. As a result of it, I'm sitting here tonight with a little over 7 years and a couple of months, and when I got here back January 3rd, 96, I didn't think that was going to be possible for me. I had been around for 11 years at that point, and I didn't think recovery was possible for me, even though I had had years sober and clean. The last time I went out with 6.5 years, and I was out there a year and a half and had no clue of how I was going to be able to get this thing again. I picked up white chip after white chip. I had probably 30 white chips in the last 6 months of that year and a half that I was out there, and every time, by the time the second or third day rolled around, the obsession returned in the mind, and it just was uncontrollable. I had to have it. I had to have something to anesthetize me, something to make me feel different, because I couldn't live with who I was. And man, that's a merry-go-round I don't ever want to get caught on again. And every time I picked it up, I used it until I fell down on my face somewhere, till I could take no more. And man, I don't miss it. I'm sure none of us do, and that's why we're here. Anyways, that's just kind of giving you guys a little brief description of what we're doing in the book and where we're at. Tonight I'm going to jump in after the 12th step, after having had that spiritual awakening. And no, Trace, it's not all men here tonight. Tonight it is just all men. I mean, some of us are in drag, where Keith wanted to dress up as a man tonight. So. A lot of the girls cut out for the Jewish holiday tonight. They got to go do their family thing. That and Jim's not here, and I'm not as good looking nor half as charming as Jim, so they opted out.
Pass them over, huh?
Passed them over. Passed me right over. Didn't think twice about it. Tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking about the line just after the 12th step on page 60, where it says, many of us exclaim, what an order. I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. And man, do I know what that feeling is right now. And carrying the message a lot of times, and trying to carry this message a lot of times, feels like, oh man, what a freaking order. All I can relate is my experience. The only thing that most newcomers or the new man that you're trying to work with is going to relate with is real and true honesty. I've come to find for myself that I get best results by being at gut level honest and talking from the heart, so to speak. Not having to be a saint, not having to be perfect, not having to pretend like I know every answer to every question or always have the answer to the riddle. Especially starting out. When I started out sponsoring, back when, 7 years ago, it was immediately after I had worked my 12th step. And I knew that I had been given a little window of grace and opportunity, that actually the obsession had left me and the compulsion was gone. And I knew that a fire or the spirit had ignited within me. There was no mistaking it. I knew that God had actually worked a miracle in my life. And there was no doubt in it whatsoever. And so therefore, I knew that when my sponsor told me that I had better take it to heart and start trying to help other people the same way Bill did, with the same passion or the same vigor, or else I wasn't going to be able to keep it unless I gave it away. And I really didn't understand that, other than I knew that the man never lied to me. Everything he told me that was going to happen actually happened. And I knew that I needed to follow the final command, of which was carry this message to other suffering alcoholics, and in this day and age, obviously addicts. And it's exactly what I proceeded to do. I was that guy you couldn't shut up. I was the guy that was telling all the relapsers from around the club rooms that you got to get God between you and it. You need to work the steps. And I had found the answer to life. I found the answer for the problem that was plaguing me. And I knew it. And I knew this as well. The only thing that I had done was simply what another man showed me. And I knew I could duplicate it because I actually did the work. I knew that I could go back through the book and take somebody through the 12 steps because I had done it myself. And I also knew that God was going to do his part the same way he did it for me. Obviously, he would do it for anybody else. I wasn't special. I wasn't unique. I wasn't different. I'm just your average Joe. I ended up willing enough to do what somebody else was suggesting for me to do. And as a result of it, that, again, the greatest thing I could have ever done. Unknowingly. Many of us claim, what an order, I can't go through with it. That's been the feeling a lot of days. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence. I haven't met one person yet that can maintain a perfect adherence to doing 5 simple things that was requested of me to do on a daily basis. And them 5 things are, once you're up working steps 10, 11, and 12 are simply going to a meeting every day, praying every day, meditating every day, taking an inventory, steps 10 and 11 every day, and trying to help somebody else every day. There's no way that every day in the past 7 years that I've been able to do every one of them things. And nobody will. But do I strive to? I try to. I don't give myself excuses not to do it, but there's been a lot of days where I've just felt so good, and the problem has been so well solved within me that I forget. I feel so good. I forget that I'm even suffer with the disease of alcoholism. I can get on such a spiritual plane that nothing is bothering me whatsoever. And I can go maybe 2 or 3 days sometimes. And then all of a sudden I'll get this big old knot ball in my stomach. And I'll find myself hanging out the window flipping people the bird, or put my big Ford emblem right on their back window as close as I can anyways, right in their rearview mirror. And and something just says, whoa, 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 what is going on with you? Whoa, whoa. And then it's like, oh, damn, you got away from it again. I promise anybody that, the book promises anybody that strives along a path of spiritual progress, that you're going to feel better. You're going to feel good. I think the way I get carried through them days is I'm just simply in God's pocket. And like I said, I don't suggest it to anybody that I sponsor, because it's a hell of a hard lesson to learn. And you run too long without doing the right thing, and it does. It gets to be, what, in order. I can't go through with it. Where's it saying in the book that us alcoholics are undisciplined? So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. I believe it's maybe the end of this chapter, page 71. No, that's 72. It's farther up. Page 88. It says, we alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. And that's exactly what I was just talking about. What an order. Can't go through with it. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12 and working with the new person. And that's a chore. That's a chore for somebody of my nature or your nature who just figured out that they're completely a selfish and self-centered individual that's full of fear. Don't really like people too much anyways, because you've already figured out everybody in life you came across wronged you, hurt you, threatened you, or did something to you, sometimes without even opening their mouth, for you now to go out and try to help other people. It's a chore. And it wasn't a task easily undertaken for me. I knew I had no choice in the matter. I knew that if I wanted to keep my spirit awoken, woke up, if you will, I had to do this work. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no wiggle room whatsoever. I had to expand upon what we're going to read now. That the point was is that we were willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we set down were guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. The only way that I've truly been able to find out that I continue to grow spiritually is by working with another person. I find that the maintenance comes out well for me in the 5 things that we do every day, in the inventory, the prayer, and the meditation, and going to meetings. I kind of just maintain. But I come to find something that was key to me. The only time that I really felt any significant spiritual growth, where I was actually growing, was when I was being completely selfless in trying to help another person to find this way of life. To actually care enough to take time out of my precious schedule to pick up the phone and call other people, to sit down and read this book word for word or line for line with somebody who maybe can't read, to sponsor somebody, to take on the challenge of trying to help somebody. What an order. That wasn't something that I ever thought I would be doing in life. It's just something that I found myself doing as a result of the work that I had done. We're not saints. The point is that we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. Today I am willing to grow spiritually. Today I do want more God inflow into my life. I have to have it. If I don't feel close to God, to me today, it's kind of sort of the same feeling that you get when you don't brush your teeth for a 24-hour period. They just feel dirty and yucky, and you get that feel. My spirit, my inside gets to feeling that way. I start feeling dirty and yucky and kind of rough around the edges, and I'm an addict, man. I like to feel good. I like to feel good. The reason I did the drugs and alcohol to the point that I did them was because it did something for me. It allowed me to escape myself. And the bottom line is if I want to continue to feel good, there's certain things that I've been taught to do that when I do them, I do just fine. When I don't do them, I do bad. I get really rough. And in this program, it can be a complete order sometimes. It's just like, damn, I don't want to do it today. Coming up here to do this, after listening to Jim when I was sitting right there where Alex is last week, saying that he knows the book as well as I. Oh, I don't. He might think I do, or that he obviously thinks I do, and I probably do. I probably just don't give myself enough credibility and confidence in it. Again, I'm not going to ever try to think that I'm going to be able to recite it the way that he recites it, but I'll sure strive for it. Right now, probably 7 years later, I might have about maybe 15 pages in my little file storage upstairs of where to go. And it's basically come to me through repetition of working with other people, of continually practicing and working out of this book. I think it was somewhere along about the fifth guy that I was helping, maybe 2 years in, that I had actually gotten up into the fifth step, and we were sitting, I remember like it was yesterday, we were sitting in the back room of my house, and we had just completed his fifth step, and he was out in the backyard doing his hour quiet time for step 6 and 7, and something occurred to me, and the feeling came strong. And it was, I knew at that point that my problem was completely and absolutely solved. And there was one other thing. The next thought was this that completely blew my mind. That this book was written 30 years before I was ever conceived. And every problem that I was ever going to have to face in life, they had already written a book about it that had the problem in it and the solution, and it blew my socks off, because I knew that my problems were perfectly solved. And I had to realize that at that point that I had about a 2-year run of pretty much just sheltered, divinely protected, walking in the sunlight, hand in hand, like the book says, with a power greater than myself, with God at my side. 2 years later, I was actually able to retire. That's how well the promises came true in my life. I quit. I ceased fighting everything and everybody. I just simply ceased. I said, what the hell's it worth? I'd rather walk away than to really and truly, if I love you and you're doing something wrong, I'll sit there and I'll do my utmost to try to get your attention. But to keep fighting with things of the world, somehow I just kind of laid down inside and realized it's just not so important. And it was with that thought that I realized that I don't got to have the $2 million home before I retire. I don't got to have a Lexus and a Mercedes in the driveways in order to retire. At that time, I had already done enough for myself that I was okay with my $80,000 house. I was okay with my 3-year-old pickup truck. None of that stuff was going to make anything ever any better, and I just began to accept what is instead of what wasn't. And that was a big order for me, because I was always living chasing. And man, as soon as I let that thought laid down, and I realized that all I had to do was surrender my life and the lifestyle that I was chasing, that everything was just going to become 100 times easier, I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed. It was a big order for me to get to that point. So when Jim sits in here and he says the 12 steps are for everybody, and
you better not get drunk.
One more time?
So you better not get drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
He says that they're for everybody. And they truly are. They truly are. The realm of the Spirit is broad and roomy. It's open for everybody. The ones who achieve it are the ones that work for it. We just read that faith without works is dead. And that's what I come to find in my life is probably one of the most truest statements I've ever heard, is that I got to do the work. Yeah, I have faith today, but if I'm not doing work to try to help somebody else, it will die. I got to give back. There's absolutely, unequivocally no exception to that rule. I've sponsored, I don't keep count. I know it's well over 50. And I've seen guys work all 12 steps and fail to enlarge their spiritual life by working with other people, and I've had to see them go out and end up drunk all over again. I've seen guys come in and work the steps up to step 7 or step 8 and fail to go out and make amends, and they had to go out and get drunk and tore up from the floor up all over again. And that's just something that I'm not willing to do. I don't ever want to go back to where I came from, as I'm sure most of you don't. And again, when it comes to carrying this message, what in order? You need to just relax. The most important thing I figured out is that you got to learn how to try to channel and let God flow through you. He will work through you. The biggest mistake I make today when I'm in a meeting is I raise my hand and share without asking God to please speak through me first, before I take on the challenge of raising my hand and actually sharing. Because I'm doing just a completely self-willed thing. I want to sound good. I want to impress the pretty girls in the room or whatever it is. And I usually end up having a half a mess come out and maybe a little part of something that sounds good. I have to continually surrender to Him. And I got to speak from the heart. The only way you're ever going to attract anybody, the only way I was ever able to win anybody's confidence, is because they actually wanted what I had. The only way somebody's ever going to ask you to sponsor them if they see something in you that they want, some sort of quality. And usually they want to hear what's real instead of a bunch of crap. And a lot of times it's hard to talk about what's real. Why? Because ego's in the way. Pride's in the way. By our very nature, we don't want to help other people. We're selfish. We like for people to look at us and think we're a big shot, but really deep down in, we feel like the biggest frauds on earth. Biggest fakes and phonies. But it's in taking the risk. It's in the stepping out. It's, again, taking another leap of faith off that bridge of reason that runs out. Not an easy thing to do. It's a challenge. But I promise you, through my experience, that the only way you're going to be able to continue to grow is by intensive work with other alcoholics. It will carry you through the certain low spots that are ahead. And everybody's life in the room is going to hit highs and lows. That's all there is to it. Tragedy's going to happen. People are going to die. Sweet relationships are going to be broken. Big bank accounts will be bankrupted. Might even end up facing something criminal or civil, such as a lawsuit or something. Be sitting and somebody looking to take everything you friggin' own because of a fender bender or something. That's happened to me. Might be a loved one that goes back out and dealing with that. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to go on, but that through my experience, if you stay close and you perform his work well, you can get through it. You can get through it without having to anesthetize yourself. Again, the point is that we're willing to grow along the spiritual lines. Principles we've set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. I don't know if there's any saints walking the world. I guess Teresa was the last one, but probably be another 1,000 years before she ever hits any kind of saint list. The principles. Again, this word principles. When I got here at the age of 17, which is 20 years ago, I heard that word principle thrown around. These spiritual principles. I thought the principal was the head of an elementary school, man. That's God's honest truth. People can relate with that. So I did. I had no idea people lived by principles. I know people said that they had morals and values, but if you were anything like I was, you could watch them for any length of time, you're going to see them do something wrong. I don't care if it was the preacher at church. I'd be standing there talking to him, and he would be telling me something, and then all of a sudden, some little pretty congregant would go walking by, and there goes his old head and his eyeballs. And I saw what he was looking at. I was looking too. That blew the morals and values and principles and everything right out of my head. I just didn't believe it. I thought that it was for somebody else. I really, truly didn't believe that people truly lived up to that stuff. I thought it was just something that sounded good, and they talked about it, but as soon as you turned your back and they were out of sight, they were off doing whatever it was that they were doing. And I had seen it over and over again throughout my whole life. I mean, the people I thought that had the best of families, the old man was beating the old lady, or the old lady was cheating on the old man. I saw right through it all, where they were beating the kids. I always saw through people, and I never trusted them for it. So therefore, I never believed that anybody. I thought it was all a big lie. I thought they were lying to me, and truly did think a principal was the head of a school. How do you work a principal in your life? That just didn't make any sense, and I had to find out what a principal was, and I'm Principle is basically a law or a code that you live by, that you live with. For me, they ended up becoming all the spiritual answers that I worked. It ended up being the solution to my problems. The prayer for resentment, page 552 talks about, 553, about praying for somebody. That was working a principle, a spiritual principle. It was praying for somebody. It was also a spiritual principle when I started writing down my fears and giving them to God. It became a working spiritual principle for me. That's how I learned to start applying principles for myself. And they worked. The only thing that sold me on this program was what they asked me to do. Something happened. It worked. So I remember with my resentment list, I had about 75 or 80 resentments. I mean, and I didn't like anybody. I really did. And somehow through doing that prayer, like they said, every day for 2 weeks, something happened up here. Something changed in my psyche, and that was the miracle of it. Because all of a sudden, I wasn't hating everybody anymore. And I was starting to maybe perhaps realize that other people were just human and that they were just making mistakes in life the way I was. And a lot of the anger and the hate and the rage and the hurt left. And it was through the practice of spiritual principles. When I'd seen the 100 forms of fears that my selfish self-centeredness was driven by, when I'd seen that God took away them fears by me simply asking, it blew me away because I had no idea that that would happen. But it did. It did. I wasn't afraid anymore. And basically what the principles are to me, and I mentioned a spiritual kit of tools. And every time I think about this spiritual kit, I know that box of tools, through my practice and working with them, through my experience with them, of having used them, that they work and they work perfectly. Confidence has become a very big part of being an effective sponsor. Knowing that simply because it worked for me, it's going to work for anybody that I show it to, is important for me to have. Because if I can't convince you to do it, and if you don't believe me, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get the results. Well, the first several people that I took through the steps, it was kind of winging it. And then after a while, I realized, wow, that one's doing it. He's still doing good, and he's still here. And look, he's already sponsoring 2 other guys. And a couple more years went by, and then all of a sudden there was 2 or 3 or 4 guys there, and they all were doing the work and practicing the spiritual principles, and they were sponsoring other people as well. And 1 or 2 of the guys that they were sponsoring were starting to take hold as well. So it was working for others. I needed to see that because it helped me to grow in confidence. When we talk about continuing to grow spiritually, spiritual growth, that's what you need to see. That's kind of like shoring up the platform. And you see that what's being practiced and what's being taught and what you're doing is working. And then when you see it working in others, it's just like another affirmation of truth, a reaffirmation. And it makes the concrete in the foundation just gets harder and harder, I believe, is my belief. I talked about the spiritual kit of tools back on page 25. It talks about a spiritual kit of tools. And there is a solution. It's about 8 lines down. It says, when therefore we were approached by those with whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. What I was taught the simple spiritual kit of tools was, and what it consisted of, were what made the 12 steps gel for me, which showed me that one step absolutely has to rely on the other, that they go just like this, and they interlock and they tighten down. And that one step is not going to be effective without the other step. You need them all, and you need them perfectly, and you need to work them 1 through 12 the way they're designed and written. What are the spiritual kit of tools? It's inventory in the 4th step. It's admission in the 5th step. It's submission to God in steps 6 and 7. It's amends with step 9. You got inventory again in the 10th. Got prayer and meditation in the 11th. You also got prayer in the 4th step. You got prayer in the 7th step. You got prayer in the 9th step before you go out and make amends to somebody. Hopefully you're bringing God with you. You got prayer in the 10th step. Prayer and meditation are essential parts of the kit of tools. All of them are. In service to others being the final one. And once I figured out that if I work those things on any problem in life, equals problem solved. Equals no more problem. And that's exactly what the book just said, and it kind of blew me away because I forgot exactly what it said. But it said, when therefore we were approached by those, for me it was my sponsor, with whom the problem had been solved. That was the catch-all word in the very beginning for me. When my sponsor approached me and offered to work with me, he said, my name's Jim, I'm an alcoholic, and if you allow me to help you by allowing me to help you work through the 12 steps, I promise you your problem will be solved. And I said, solved? I'd been around for 11 years and nobody had ever told me that my problem would be solved. And I stepped back and I looked at him and I said, what does this old son of a bitch want? What do you mean, solved? And then that word stuck. Solved. Problem solved. I didn't believe it could be solved. I'm going to be an alcoholic and an addict for the rest of my life was my natural born thought process. Not going to solve my problem. You might arrest it or something, or I might get a reprieve, but it ain't going to solve it. And he said, no. He goes, look right here. And then he took me to page 45. And on page 45, in the first full paragraph, it said lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. And we got to go farther down yet. And then it says, obviously, but where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve, that word solve again, which will solve your problem. And well, damn, that's just what I was looking for all the time anyways. That's why I was coming to these meetings, so that I could solve this damn problem and get on with my life. That's why I was coming. I never knew the problem could be solved. I never bothered, mind you, at this point, having read this book or working steps or anything like that. I might have did it to a point. I wung it. Some people threw some Hazelden editions at me or something, and I filled them all out, and somehow I was able to hang around here for a period of time on fear and ego and trying to help other people, but it never lasted. I always ended up having to pick up again, and sure enough, any time that the low spots that we talked about or the high spots came, I thought I was doomed to success because every time I got a whole lot of money, I had to go mess it up. So therefore, I couldn't handle success. And anytime things got so bad, oh, she left me, or I was all alone, or in the poor me's and self-pity, there was nothing to fix that heart pain except to pick up a drink or a drug in order to anesthetize it and numb it. But anyways, when he approached me with confidence that I could solve your problem, I'd step back. I looked at him and I thought to myself, I said, man, then he showed me it in the book. That's how he won my confidence. And I said, look, I said, I really, in my head was going 1,000 miles an hour. I said, man, I really don't trust you. I know you're going to hurt me. One of them weird guys that sit over there in the corner with that book open trying to help everybody. And they were too, man. They were coming in like one every 15 minutes. They'd sit down for about 15 minutes. He'd tell them what to do. He'd leave. And I'd seen this happening down at the Little River Club. And it was going on for months at a time. And I was staying away from that joke. Serving some Jim Jones juice over there or something. I don't know. And the only thing the only benefit I gained out of that was I was seeing that these people were actually, most of them were doing well. They weren't continuing to use. They were working a program. And like I said, finally he had approached me. I guess because I wasn't approaching him. And I was kind of the sore thumb of the room. I was sitting on the back of the chair screaming at people because I knew I had to go back out and get high. And if y'all didn't hurry up and fix me, I was going to be back out there again, having to take another ass whooping, whether I wanted to or not. And that's powerless. And when he said it to me, he said, I promise you, if you just do what I tell you to do and what this book says to do, and by the way, I promise you I won't do anything I can't show you in here, your problem will be solved. And that was a challenge I accepted. And he won me with his confidence. He won me with his confidence. And really what my real thought was, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways because I ain't got nothing better to do. And the only thing I was doing anyways was hanging around there trying not to pick up another drink or go out and get some more dope. And I said, it just might work. He says it's worked for millions. And I knew that, I knew the power worked. And I said the only thing that I hadn't done up to that point was actually work the 12 steps, 1 through 12, which, by the way, was suggested in every meeting. Because in every meeting, how it works was read. But I just didn't do it. It was for somebody else. Those things were only suggested, which meant I can treat this thing as a smorgasbord. Well, luckily, he told me to get a dictionary and start looking words up because I guess right away he figured out I wasn't none too smart. And, and my best thought was, I'm going to go ahead and do what he tells me to do, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to come back and kill him and go back out and shoot some more fucking dope anyways. And that's where my thought pattern was. And, I'm going to give it a shot, basically. And he snickered me. He fooled me. Because I really didn't think it was going to work, but it did. I did it, and it did, and somehow I feel like I got way off track here. But again, what catches people? To me, it's the language of the heart. It's the heart to heart. It's the love and the understanding that one alcoholic, an addict, can share for another. You guys can understand this stuff, right? Because you hear it, you feel it, you know it. Maybe you've experienced a little bit of it. I feel like I get a whole lot more out of it when I can just be myself. I don't got to try to be Jim. I don't got to try to be anybody else. I don't got to be perfect. But I should strive. I should strive to know what I'm talking about. I should work at it, in other words. I should be looking to make progress towards the direction of perfection. And the only reason that I should be is because obviously you'll be a better vessel for God to do His work, to do His will. That's what this thing's all about. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And hell, I've helped guys that wouldn't have ever went to gym. And Frankie's helped guys that would have never been able to come to me. Keith's helped guys that probably would have never approached me. And Jim has helped guys that would never approached me. And there's just kind of like, we're all just like individual vessels is the way I see it. That we kind of draw to us whatever we will, and that's the ones that God wants us to help. I also figured something else out. I don't get to pick or choose whether it's male or female, black, white, gay, Polish, Irish, or Italian. Because I found that, there was a lot of things in me that were holding me back. I had to lose a lot of stuff. I had to lose a lot of ignorance. And it was through the work I had to lay a lot of ignorance and a lot of prejudice. If you remember, I just told you not too long, I didn't like anybody. So for me, it was kind of easy because I just hated you all the same, and and I didn't trust any of you. But it's proven to be a world beyond my wildest dreams, as it is for a lot of other people. Back up here to page 60, second full paragraph. It's a short one. It says, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. Who knows what the description of the alcoholic was?
Restless, irritable, and discontent.
Right. Restless, irritable, discontent. It said, who knew what the book's asking us, well, it's not asking us, it's telling us, our description of the alcoholic. What was the description of the alcoholic? Obviously, it was a man that couldn't stop drinking on his own power, right? And he was restless, definitely, without any thought whatsoever, restless, irritable, and discontent. Because anybody that's powerless over alcohol can't stop drinking. Their life is completely unmanageable, and they're not happy campers.
Would it also be the first 3 chapters?
Yeah. Bill's story, right? Could also be the stories in the back of the book if the whole book's already been read. It's the description of the alcoholic. But what kind of alcoholic? The one that's still wet. The one that can't stop on his own. Right? One who's in the grips. Can't stop. Don't know how he can keep himself from taking another drink. The one that's off in the insane asylums and the sanitariums for a repeated number of times. The one that's lost everything. Wife, kids, children, dog, house, cars, trucks, and still can't stop drinking. The ones that we still see the same way today is what it's talking about. They're completely hopeless. Is the description. The chapter to the agnostic. That's the greatest chapter in this book, if you want to ask me. And the only reason is because God's mentioned there more times than anywhere else. And the chapter to the agnostic, for me, myself, I haven't seen too many real, true agnostic that just flat out say, there ain't no God. There ain't no God. Atheist. Is atheist a little bit different than an agnostic? That the one that just flat out there is no God? Agnostic is kind of on the fence?
Yeah, well, there might be a God, he ain't gonna help me.
Okay. Well, you can help me out, man. I'm not gonna. There is a difference between atheist and agnostic, and the exact meanings of them, I don't know. It's the same thing to me. To me, it's the guy don't like God too much, or he ain't tried God yet, or he's just avoided the God issue altogether and hasn't tried it yet. That's the guy I want. Because I know once God opens a can of ass whoop on him, that's he's going to have a flood of feeling of something different happening to him than he's ever experienced in his life, and he's going to be the one that's on fire and going to go out and going to really try to help other people. That's the guy I want. I want to argue with him a little bit. I'm going to have fun with him. I'm going to say, how can you tell me there ain't no God? And then I'm going to tell him, well, how do you explain that? And how do you explain that? And how do you explain that? And like I have done with several people. I said, well, some of the greatest scientific minds in the world can't say what's making the cell in that little thing, can't say what's making that happen. That's what's making that happen. The greatest minds in the world. Albert Einstein couldn't tell you what that was. Was the miracle of God. It was the power of God. What's making them tides come in and out? What's making the sun go up and down? What's making the wind blow and not blow? And I just start hitting them. I barrage them with it. For me, myself, I just start barraging them with it. And I take them to their levels and see where they want to go. And if I haven't met any yet that hasn't said, yeah, there's something to it. It's all right, we'll call it whatever you want, you know. But obviously, you know there's some kind of power greater than yourself happening here in this world. And it's upon that simple cornerstone that this 12 steps can work, by the way. I haven't seen one yet that did it off a pickup truck or a doorknob or some of the things that you hear Jim say or some of the things that you might hear in meetings. But I have fun with that. It says in our personal adventures, before and after, make clear 3 pertinent ideas. And pertinent ideas, A, is that we were alcoholic, could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Man, that is something that I have been seeing over and over and over since the day that Jim took me through this. Since the time I completed the 12 steps, and mind you, I was 35 days in when my 12 step was done. And I was working the 12 step and out trying to find somebody else to sponsor. I had worked a great deal of the 9 steps, amends, some of the major ones. And I had a lot left to be made, and I made them throughout the years, and it finished up all of them that were on my list somewhere about the 5.5 year mark. I finally made the last one that was on that original list. And that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. I think that kind of relates right back up here to our personal adventures. Our personal adventures. I had a whole lot of adventures trying to get this program, man. I'd so God wish that somebody would have just hit me straight from the heart coming out the gate with this. And me just being willing and ready to accept it. Because it would have saved me years of pain, and years of turmoil, and years of misery. But I don't know if I would have took it with the same vigor that I took it. I don't think I would have took it unless I got it right when I got it, just the way I got it. I had to have, I guess, some of those personal adventures. And those personal adventures had to do with human powers. Them damn human powers like killed me. What was it? For me, it was psychiatrists, counselors, and detox units, and prescriptions of Prozac and Boost Bar and man-made things. Now, I'm not saying this is for everybody. This is my personal adventure. They didn't work for me. Obviously, because probably I didn't need them. I took them and they made me feel better, all right. But they took me to an unrealistic... It changed my mood altogether. And where I wasn't doing nothing at one point, all of a sudden I was rebuilding 3 houses in a week. And I was just swinging severely from the left to the right, and I wasn't getting any center keel. I felt okay, but I felt so good that I would just, I didn't really necessarily feel like drinking, but somehow I always ended up back in the bar with another bottle of booze in my hands, and I'd be pounding the fucking bar. How'd I end up here again? How'd I do it again? I did it again. The countless times that I was sitting, countless hours that I sat in treatment centers doing the different types of therapy, the Gestalt and the red chair therapy or whatever, the hot seat therapy, and good SOB this and good SOB that, and crying your eyes out and crying your tears out and being completely torn down from one end to the other and shredded out. Feel like you come out of a damn a chipper or something, man. You come out and it's like you're a bloodbath. Till only 3 days after getting out of there, getting drunk again. Felt great while I was there. I was protected. Y'all were giving me something to do. It was easy to do while I had all that human power around me. But as soon as you stuck me back out in the real world, you wasn't going to stop me from going to do what I had to do. I was scared to death. I had to have something. These were my adventures with that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Self-knowledge wasn't going to do it. All the hours I poured out my deepest, darkest, sickest secrets. I'm the little girl. Sickest secrets to counselors. And sometimes even in an AA form or an NA form. From a microphone or a podium. Given detailed counts of escapades and relapses and exciting stories, detail by detail, just because I thought that's what people wanted to hear. All that, letting all that out, no matter how I let it out, ever stopped me from picking up another drink or a drug. Never. It didn't stop me. Because I was relying solely upon human power, solely upon letting all this, what I thought were secrets, out. And I did. I did it in 3 different treatment centers and 4 different psychiatrists' offices and a couple of psychologists' offices, and I didn't get it. I couldn't get it. Every time I did it, I felt like I was just some kind of big wound, and there was never no real healing. And it wasn't until I worked the 12 steps that I ever felt like any of that stuff, till I practiced spiritual principles with it, that I actually kind of gave it away and it felt like it was healed. I really felt like I had a healing from it. And I think it was because for the first time, God was in the picture. God came into the equation. God didn't come into the equation in the treatment center the way it did when I worked the 12 steps. God never came into the equation in the psychiatrist's office. God never came into the equation in the psychologist's office or any of the counselors. And it was through Him, which is said that God could and would if He were sought. It was through adding Him to the mix that I believe the problem actually ended up solved, because there was a divine healing. And the things that I used to be, my deepest, darkest, sickest secrets that I truly was horrified of, that I wouldn't have talked about, actually have become my greatest assets in a lot of cases, because they actually have the power. They actually got the power to help save somebody else's life or the lives of others, because I'm able to relate, because I'm able to understand. And you don't know that until you're to the other side and you actually get to practice that. And when you understand, you understand. Today's meditation. I like to read the 24-hour-a-day book, a little black book. Talked about loving everybody as a brother or a sister. That's what it talked about. It talked about that word love, and loving everybody as a brother or a sister. And that's tough stuff. That's hard to do. But I found myself today all day long trying to practice that principle, the principle of love, and treat them as if it were my brother or my sister, or the way I would want them to treat me, with love and respect, with kindness and with goodness. And it was tough. This afternoon I went to the psych ward, and I seen some of the nurses on the ward just letting people have it. And I started getting really angry inside, because they were getting irritable, restless, and discontent with sick people. And I was there visiting a sick person who lives with the same disease I do. And I remembered back when I was in, and you know what? They treated me the same damn way. They gave me no respect. They talked to me like I was a piece of trash. They were looking down upon me. These are professional people. And I was just beside myself. I was just beside myself. And I found myself driving over here, and I said, man, I hope that I don't ever treat somebody the way that I seen them people treating them. So anyways, this person that I was seeing obviously lodged a complaint. They had been watching it all day long. They lodged a complaint and called the upper echelon in the hospital. It just so happened when I was there, the upper echelon came in and took the complaint, and I guess promptly went over to the floor supervisor and let the floor supervisor know about how unhappy he was that he had to hear a complaint from one of his patients in his hospital, and the poo-poo started rolling downhill, so to speak. And shot a curve, went up to the big boss, and the big boss sent down the other big boss, and all of a sudden the one who was responsible for the floor came in after the other gentleman left, and apologized for what they did wrong to the guest of the hospital, the person I was visiting. And I was just sitting back, and I said, wow, this is kind of like an amends. This is weird. You know, that she's coming in here doing this. And we don't want it. We want to remember that the new person is still very sick. I don't know how many times that you guys have been here, or if you've been here for a while and went back out and had to come back and pick up another white chip. You got to remember that the new man is a very ill, very sick, very fragile person, that they need to be treated with love, the same way you'd want to be treated. I find myself sometimes getting uptight that people ain't getting it. Like, man, you just ain't getting it. You don't get it. And usually they ain't getting it because they ain't doing the work, or they've taken their will back. But you got to remember that if you want to attract other people, you got to remain in a space of love. We're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to take anybody's inventory. We're here to try to help them save their life. And for us to ever get on a platform and talk down or look down at anybody, if it's not in some format of being loving and kind and giving, you're on the wrong footing, my friend. Because if somebody ever met you at the door with that, you'd been out of here, and they're going to be out of here too. And it's going to be one more guy that's going to, or woman that's going to end up dead because you were an asshole. And or I was. And we're all guilty of it. But it's just something that I hate to say, because it's like, you know, here it was, this old lady, 28 years old, head RN, went off sick on a sick person. It just happened to be that sick person was my friend. And luckily my friend had enough sanity that they did the right thing, and was able to just kind of bring it all to a big circle. But there it was. And my friend was probably the only one real alcoholic that was there on that floor. And here she is, and never had, you know, the wherewithal to even check the chart to see who she was dealing with. She just come in and barking orders. Basically screamed and yelled at her and walked away and treated her like a dog. And it's just funny how fast it comes back around. How fast she came back in that door with the tail between her legs. It's like there's no room. God is watching us. God is watching us. We do have a real purpose. We do have God on our side. God does work in and through us. And you got to be mindful of that. You don't want to spoil the opportunity. There's no other solution for alcoholism and addiction other than these 12 steps. Nowhere else in the world, no other way has it been solved yet. And the bottom line is that this is what works, and if it wasn't for someone being there for us, we're all in trouble. God could and would if he were sought. One of my next favorite lines is exactly under that. It says, being convinced of this, we were at step 3. Being convinced of what? How it works. It means you've already, if you can read how it works and understand it, maybe you're smarter than the average, you're already at the 3rd step. That's exactly what the book's saying. It's saying, being convinced, we were at step 3. It was the start of a new chapter. So basically, if you've read through how it works thoroughly enough that you completely understand it, you know that you're powerless, and B, you know that it's going to take a power greater than you. It's going to take God, could have and would if he were sought. You're at step 3, which means you're ready to make the decision. But then it goes off into a whole nother couple of pages before you make this decision. Well, I give you the best I could. Hopefully Jim will be back next week. And if we can keep him in town, huh, Carmine? We might be shipping him out again. I don't know.
Possibility we'll be shipping out again.
But I certainly did enjoy it, and I hope that you guys got something out of it. And